Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. We are back today doing another book review on the book called One Week Girlfriend by Monica Murphy. This is the first book I've ever read from her. I did not know about her as an author. I just got done, guys, making two book reviews. I think I made them yesterday or the day before. I can't remember. I've started the Boys of Tommen series. So I've read Binding 13 and Keeping 13, and I am obsessed. But I'm taking a little bit of a break from the series just because they're really heavy books, and I have some other things on my TBR that I want to read. So I'm taking just a small break. I'm going to jump into the third book, definitely in August, and get started on the rest of them. But I wanted something to kind of get me out of the book hangover that I was in. And I had a couple books waiting for me to read, but they just weren't sounding good to me. So I went to a local book outlet store that we have, and all the books are brand new, but they have them at really discounted prices. And this was one of the 5 that I picked up. This book, I think it was about 300 pages. I think it was around like 270 or something. I read this all in the same day in 2 settings. I read it when I brought it home, and then I read it that evening and finished it. Very fast read. But guys, if you have not read this book and you're interested in reading it, I do believe it is a series. I looked the author up on TikTok, and she's got quite a bit of books out, and I see some good reviews for some of her other books. If you want to read this, please click away because we are talking about this book today. I have so much to say about this book, and I don't want to spoil it for you. So if you have not read this, please click away. Guys, if you have read this, so this book, it says it costs $12 on the back. I paid $3 for it. So I was like, let's give it a shot. I am not the biggest fan of people on the cover of books. The cover looked a little sus to me, little interesting. But the back, it seemed like it was going to be a good story. It definitely was going to be a quick story. So basically you have, her name is Fable and the guy's name is Drew. Fable works at the bar. So what I just thought was so interesting, because if you're watching this, you've probably read it. What I thought... So he asks her to go home with him to be his fake girlfriend, like first chapter. I think it was the very first chapter. So I'm like, okay, I see where this book's going. I'm not mad at it because I wanted something that would get me out of my book hangover. So I was like, this might not all be a realistic book, the pace that this is moving, because Fable and Drew did not know each other. They just knew of each other. So I'm like, it's a little unrealistic. He would pay her $3,000 to go home with him in like a couple days time with pretty much almost no warning to stay with him. She's gonna have to take off work. She takes care of her brother. Like, what's her brother gonna do? Like, it just wasn't realistic. They also just didn't know each other. Like, if I was her, I would be like, is this like a trafficking ring? Like, what is happening? Like, I would not have trusted that at all. But anyways, so I'm like, okay, I'm not mad at it. I see the book is going fast. It sucked me in. I was like, I didn't want to stop reading it. I was like, okay, they get in the car. They're kind of quiet. They're filling each other out. It happened so fast, him asking her to go home for Thanksgiving break and pretend to be his girlfriend. I think it was like 3 chapters later, they're already... and the chapters are short. So it was like they were already heading to the parents' house. So I'm like, this is really, really fast. They did not build the characters at all. There was like, and this is not a shot at all at the author. I'm sure she has really great books. This book was like sucking me in. I see a lot of people I looked up reviews on Goodreads. I see really mixed reviews about it. There was a lot of people that loved the book and continued to read because I think like this is a series. There's definitely a second book because it leaves you on a cliffhanger. But I lost my train of thought. I didn't think she built the characters. Like, you only find out a very short amount of both of their lives. Like, Drew's life is not good at home, that he doesn't even want to go back home. That his mom had passed away. I think he mentions that in the car to her. He doesn't mention that his sister passed away, even though I think the book tells you that before they're heading there. you know from Fable that her mom is not in a good place, that she's like an alcoholic and she takes care of her brother. So you get that there's trauma on both sides, but they're heading to his house. So I'm just like, this is interesting. So they get there, oh my gosh, the stepmom is just giving weird vibes from the beginning, from before they left, and he called and said he was bringing his girlfriend. Adele was just giving the weirdest vibes to me. I don't know. I knew like it was going to be bad, but guys, when it went to I want to abbreviate this, like the essay stuff, I was done with the book. I literally felt like it was so weird and gross to me. Like, I knew that there was something inappropriate that had happened with them. Like, you could tell it was building up. I think though the book, the way she did the pace of the book was like, it was going to just be kind of a light, there would be some conflict, but just like a kind of a fun read. It totally went to this different turn of like really strange, like a lot of trauma, and it was just not what I was expecting. Very dark. Like, it turned very dark very fast. I like the stuff with Adele and Drew was disgusting, and he like was so traumatized and brainwashed from her that he felt like he was going along with it purposefully. It was just, I just did it. And then they almost like kind of treated it like it wasn't as big of a deal as it was. Like, she needed to be in prison somewhere. Like, I felt like they just weren't reacting to it like they should. It was so odd and just gross. And then finding out that his sister was actually his daughter. And then the way Adele explained that to him on the phone when he called her when they got back home, it was just there was so many holes in the story. It was the way the book was set up. Like, you didn't think it was going to take you through all this, like, this really sad, like, I wasn't expecting or wanting to jump into a book that had that heavy of topics. Also just kind of like not even really bringing up the heavy topics and then just kind of like letting them be there and not at all really doing anything about them. And then like they just get in the car and go home after this super traumatic situation at his parents' house. And it's just, then he just drops her off at her apartment, and then he comes back and they have their time together, and then he just leaves, and then the book ends. And I'm just like, what did I read? I have to tell you guys, this is probably, in my opinion, no offense to Monica Murphy. I'm sure she has some great books. I hated this book. It's crazy because when I first started reading it, I would say for like maybe the first half, it was really pulling me in. Like, I liked it. I liked them starting to fall in love with each other. Also, I think it was the insta love too. Like, I'm all for characters in books meeting and hitting it off immediately, because me and my husband did. I think that's a real thing when you meet somebody and you're like, there's something different about this person, because I felt that way with my husband. But the insta love of this, like, they didn't really know anything about each other, and like they're like liking each other kind of before they even get to the house. And I don't know, it was just weird. It was the weirdest book. And then it gives you the first chapter, I think, of the second book, and it was even weirder. I feel like the way it was starting, he was like meeting with his psychologist. Fable gets a job at a new bar. He's never has reached back out to her, has just traumatized her, I would say. And just like pulled her into that, and then just left and has never reached back out to her. And then it's building up to like, he's going to end up going out with his friends to the bar she's now working at. So, but it didn't even, like, to me, there's no bringing back like the way that the essay was, like, not even like, it wasn't at all like she should have been in prison. Like, it was creepy. It was weird. I can't go back to it just being like, oh, this person did all this to me, drop it. It was the weirdest book. I don't know. It was so weird. At one point, towards the end, I like almost didn't even want to finish it. I didn't feel any connection to the characters other than just disturbance that Drew had this gross relationship with his stepmother. So I will not, most of the time when you start a series, you want to finish it. I will not be finishing this series. I did not like how it started off as something that was supposed to, like, it felt very structured to be a fast, quick, easy read. It turned into like a traumatizing, heavy, weird ending, not at all like working through anything book. So like there was nothing worked through, like no progress in the trauma, like nothing. I did not like it. So I was going to go over a couple questions because if you've read this, I definitely saw like the reviews were very like, some people were like, I read this all in one setting. I loved this book. I saw a lot of people say they had read it in one setting. Other people were just like, there was no like building of the characters. Like it was also very disturbing. Like it was just kind of all over the place. So if you've read this book, I know this, I think, is kind of a smaller author, so I may not have as many people kind of connect with this as like the Binding 13 series. But if you've read any of her books, please let me know. Please let me know if I should try her books again. But I just wanted to say, like kind of go over a couple questions that I pulled up on my phone, some like book club questions. I want this to be a new thing on my channel. So even if there's a book that you guys haven't read or something, I just want to talk about books with you guys because it's something I'm so passionate about and I'm excited to do this on my channel. I love talking about these. It helps me work through what I just read too. So anyways, I'm going to go over a couple questions. So my first one I wrote down was, has anyone read this series? Have you completed this series? Have you read this? Have you read some of her other books and you recommend me reading? It looks like she has some different series of books, so maybe I just have come across the wrong one. So did the location help? That was one of the book club questions. Did the location of the book help? So it never really gave a location other than it was at the beach. At one point they were at like a beach town, and Drew makes a point to say his family lives on the East Coast that he never sees. So I'm assuming they live on the West Coast. So the way the book kind of put it, it didn't give a feeling of like California. Maybe if I was thinking of it, I would think maybe like Oregon or Washington State or something, because it didn't give me like California vibes. I don't know, but they were at a beach somewhere. It sounds like the West Coast to me. Let's see. Let me pull up some other book questions. Okay, another question. Which character did you like the most and which one did you dislike and why? Okay, I can't even say, I guess Fable would be my favorite character because honestly, none of the characters were my favorite. It broke my heart what had happened to Drew, but I hope in the book world, his world, in the future books, he was able to heal from what had happened to him. But I would say, I guess, Fable, because you did find out, I feel like, the most I don't know. I almost feel like you found out more about Drew. This was a dual point of vision book, so it switched between their thoughts. So I almost feel like you ended up knowing more about him than her, but I would say maybe she was my favorite because nothing he was saying to her through all of these traumatic life experiences was making her run. Like, she still wanted to know more about him. She cared about him. It wasn't pushing her away. So I love that how hard she was riding for him. So my least favorite character would obviously be Adele, the stepmom. She was horrid, like awful woman, should be in prison. Terrible character, manipulative, narcissistic, terrible character. So that would be Adele. Next question, how did the author's writing style impact your enjoyment of the book? Her writing style, first of all, I love dual point of vision books. I loved that in the Binding 13 series, loved it in all the Colleen Hoover books I've read. I feel like most of hers are dual point of vision. Like, if I'm looking up at my stash of her books. I've read 12 of her books so far. And I feel like all of them were, if I can think, other than It Ends With Us. Was It Ends With Us? I think that was just from Lily. But anyways, so I enjoyed her writing style of making it a dual point of vision book, because I always want to know what the guy is thinking, what both of them are thinking, how on the same page they are. But the writing style of not building the characters, not building any type of like world around them. There was no friends. There was like 4 people pretty much in the whole book, other than the random girl that he went to high school with that tried to talk to them when they were picking out Fable a dress for the country club. Other than that, there was just no characters. There was like no banter. There was no like, yeah, so I would say her style of writing in the dual point of vision book, and how she was just kind of diving in. The book was moving fast and it grabbed you from the beginning. I appreciated that about her writing, but I would say the lack of building it to really like keep you with it the whole way through, I didn't like. Did the pacing of the story feel right, or did it feel too slow or too rushed? The pacing, if it was going to stay a light and easy read and just a fun beach read, I would say go for it. Do the fast paced, let it be one of those quick, almost kind of like a novella, just really fast, really quick love story, fun and light. Sure, I love that. But I would say that it was definitely incredibly too fast paced for the amount of heaviness that came into the book towards the middle to the end. When you find out that what the stepmother has done to him, it just breezed through it way too quickly. Like he never shared it with his dad. I was hoping he would share it with his dad. Yeah, the book definitely needed just like so much more to it when you bring in those heavy aspects. So I thought it was too fast paced for the way she turned the book at the end. I thought this was interesting too. Was there any quotes or passages that stood out to you, or why? Like different quotes? Pretty much, I would say all the books, like all the Colleen Hoover books, there's things about the books that I loved. I loved certain things the characters said. Binding 13, I'm not somebody who marks my favorite quotes or my favorite parts, but oh my gosh, there was like tons of favorite parts, favorite quotes, favorite things Johnny would say to Shannon, or Gibbsy would say to Claire in those books. This book, honestly, not a single one. I don't think there was anything other than their safe word, marshmallow, that they would say to each other, like if they were in an uncomfortable situation, like if Drew was talking to his dad or Adele and he wanted her to swoop in and save him, he would text her like marshmallow. That was the only cute thing. Everything else in this book, like there's nothing that I would have like saved and been like, oh, that quote or that conversation or learning that lesson from this really changed me or moved me or stuck with me. No. So guys, I think I'm going to end it there. If you could tell, I was not a fan. Honestly, all of the books that I've read lately, I've read, I think 16 books. I'm on my 17th book since the end of May. Like the middle to the end of May. And this is my least favorite. I was so disappointed. I was really thinking this was going to do something. It seemed promising at first, even though it was very sped up, but it just fizzled out. And the stuff with the stepmom, it blew it for me. I'm okay with talking about real issues. Definitely okay with that. It was just how I felt like the author did it, I didn't like. So I would not read that again right now. I don't know if I would read any more of her books at this moment, just because I didn't connect with that one. I don't know. I'm sure has so many other great books. It just probably wouldn't lure me in to read any of her other books at this moment, because I did not like the way that one was set up. But thank you guys so much for watching. And right now I started my first, let me grab it for you guys because it's right beside me. I started my very first Ellen Hildebrand book, The Hotel Nantucket. Started this last night. I barely got through it at all because I started reading it a little bit later and then I started to kind of doze off. So I stopped reading because I didn't want to miss anything. So this is my first one of hers and I've seen the best things about her books. So I'm excited. I'll have to give you guys a review on this one next. So thank you guys so much for watching.